This is a tester review of the Tedgix K4 electric motor for paddleboards and kayaks. The K4 was initially branded under Edge Smart Drive, but now it's branded under Tedgix. We've used this product for about 20 hours on the bottom of our kayak, and we've covered over 30 miles with it. So we'll give you our honest impression about what we think about this particular product. Now, there is a link below in the description for a 10% discount on the Tedgix website, but this video is not sponsored by Tedgix, and the opinions are completely our own. So let's begin by looking at some of the advantages about why you might want an electric motor like this K4 on the bottom of your kayak or paddleboard.
Let's start with 4 reasons for putting an electric motor like the K4 on your kayak or paddleboard. First, you can go farther. Similar to the reason e-bikes have changed the bicycle market, an electric motor like the K4 lets you cover a greater distance. Depending on conditions, we typically paddle 4 to 5 miles in a couple of hours. Sometimes we set the speed on the K4 to our normal paddle speed and just paddle along. Similar to pedal assist on a bike, this is paddle assist. So we go a little faster, cover an extra mile or so, and still feel that we got some exercise. Other times, we set the K4 at a much higher RPM, and we can cover 7 to 8 miles in the same time without dipping our paddles in the water. So it gets you to a fishing hole faster and enables you to go for a much longer trip. The second reason is that you can go out on the water in less than ideal conditions. There are days that we would like to be on the water, but don't go because of strong winds. There are also times when you're out and the wind comes up, usually in the afternoon with a thermal breeze, and often on our return trip back, and we're paddling like crazy against the wind. Or there might be a strong current or tide. The electric motor allows you to cut easily through the water. We've been out in some pretty heavy windy conditions and some strong tides like Midnight Path south of Siesta Key in Florida when the tide's coming in, and we've gone through it without any paddling. The third reason is that if you have a physical limitation like a bad shoulder, an electric motor allows you to get on the water longer and even without paddling. Finally, an electric motor is just pure fun. Pull the trigger on the handheld controller, set the cruise speed, and sit back. Steer with your thumb and enjoy being on the water. Let's talk about the components. The K4 motor is a 400-watt brushless motor with 20 pounds of thrust. The Tedgix website lists a top speed of 9.6 kilometers per hour, which is 6 miles per hour, but I think that depends on what it is attached to. We have a drop stitch inflatable tandem kayak. With the 2 of us and all our gear, we total almost 400 pounds, and the maximum speed we achieve is around 8.5 kilometers per hour, which is a bit over 5 miles per hour. The motor slips into the slot where the skeg usually goes. The K4 comes with an adapter if you have a US box-style slot. If you don't have a slide-in mount, perhaps on a hard-shell kayak, you can buy slide-in mounts that can be glued to the kayak. This is the Bluetooth module that connects the handheld controller to the motor. There are 2 connections on the battery. The first is a K-way type, which is used to connect the cable to the motor, and a USB-C port that can be used to charge the battery. The USB-C port is a 2-way, so the battery can also be used as a source to charge devices like a cell phone. The battery needs a charger that is at least 100 watts. The K4 does not come with a charger, but any USB-C charger will work, and they cost between $20 and $30. You can also buy a charger from Tedgix that plugs into the K port, not the USB-C port. It's 130 watts and apparently charges a bit faster. There are 4 sizes of batteries currently available. The B1 and B2 are supposed to provide enough power for 15 minutes and 30 minutes at full speed, respectively. The B4, 1 hour at full speed, and the B8, 2 hours. I don't see why anyone would want a B1, B2, or even a B4. They just don't provide enough time on the water. We have the B8. It takes overnight to charge it up from empty to full. The blue light on the battery indicates that it is charging, and the flashing green lights give a very rough indication of charge. Apparently, once the battery is fully charged, the green lights and blue light are supposed to go out, but they don't on mine. The only way to know what the charge level actually is to plug the motor into the battery and turn on the handheld controller, which displays an accurate reading. There is also a D-ring on the side of the battery to secure it to your kayak or paddleboard. I just tie a rope through the handle just in case. The battery and the handheld controller are supposed to be waterproof, but I've not tested that. Next is the handheld controller. If you remove the cap from the controller, there is a USB-C charging port. There is no light to indicate that it is charging, but you can check the charge by looking at the blue ring around the battery level on the handheld display. It takes a couple of hours to charge the controller, but it lasts a long time. We found it lasted several trips on the water. One quick push of the on-off button to turn it on. The blue band flashes for a second or two and then goes solid to show it is paired with the motor. It pairs very quickly, and we've never had any issues with it not pairing. A quick double press to go into sport mode. A 1 to 2 second press turns on the cruise control, and a 3 to 5 second press turns off the controller. The speed trigger can be a bit sensitive, and the speed and RPM will fluctuate a bit. This is where cruise control comes in. It is a fantastic feature. You pull the trigger to set the speed, and then press the on-off button for 1 or 2 seconds. Now you can either put the controller down and steer with your paddle, or use the joystick to steer. Setting the cruise control can be a little bit finicky. You need to hold the speed constant for a few seconds before pushing the on-off button. If you hold the button down a little longer than 1 or 2 seconds, it'll accidentally turn the controller off. The steering joystick is another big feature. Once you release the joystick, the motor straightens itself out. Steering is tight and precise, and it's lots of fun. You can use the trim buttons to adjust the motor if it does not come back exactly straight. I use the trim buttons for 2 purposes. One, if there's a current or a wind that is pushing the kayak slightly off course, then I adjust the trim to counteract that and keep it on course. Second, if I'm making a large gradual turn, I can do this with the trim button. Now the problem is that you can't see the motor as it's underneath you, so if you're playing with the trim, you have to guess where it is. When you adjust the trim, you need to give short, quick presses, as the trim buttons have additional functions. Pressing the left button for 3 to 5 seconds resets the throttle to 0, and holding the right button for 3 to 5 seconds puts the controller in Bluetooth pairing mode, so only quick presses to change the trim. The controller also displays RPM and speed in kilometers per hour. Speed varies depending on the current and wind, so I always find I was always watching the RPM. The higher the RPM, the quicker you run down your battery. Trip is the distance in a current session. If you turn off the controller mid-trip, it resets. ODO is the total kilometers you've gone with that controller. Overall, this handheld controller is great. It gives you total control of your kayak or paddleboard, and you can see and monitor your battery usage. We put the battery in the back behind the stern seat. It is only 3 inches high, 10.5 inches long, and 4 3/4 inches wide, which is not that big. The K4 extends down 9 inches, where our usual skeg is 5 inches. You need to be a little more careful when in really shallow water or coming out onto a beach. I built a little PVC stand which I keep on board, and I use it to elevate the stern of the kayak when we stop at a beach. Surprisingly, we have not gotten caught up with weeds. Once in a while, the propeller will catch something, and you can hear the motor sound a little different, not as smooth sounding. I just put it in reverse for a few seconds using the throttle trigger, and it always cleared out the debris.
After over 20 hours of using the K4 on our kayak, we found it to be strong and reliable. There's enough power to get you through a strong wind or current, and it will run for hours, although that depends on the RPM and the size of battery that you have. On a couple of occasions, we ran a cruise control for over 2 hours. We found the cruise control stayed on the entire time, and the RPMs only fluctuated a little bit. Now, for us, the game changer is this handheld controller. It's one thing to put an electric motor like the K4 on the bottom of your kayak or paddleboard, but the ability to adjust speed, forward and back, and also steer so easily was really important to us. This handheld controller has a lot of interesting features, though. Particularly, we like the speed and distance, which is determined by GPS. And we were able to calibrate that GPS using another one that we used extensively for our bicycle, and we found the speed and distance to be really quite accurate. Now, the most important feature is the ability to monitor battery usage. It is a digital readout, and it's quite accurate. And like any lithium battery, you have full power right down to the very end. So we were able to run full RPM till the battery was about 4 or 5%. So now, when we go out, we set the RPM for paddle assist. We're able to still get exercise. We cover a greater distance on the water. We see more scenery, but we keep an eye on the battery. We want to make sure that we've got enough left so that we run into a headwind or a strong current, or we just want to put our paddles up, crank up the RPM, and cruise back to the put-in place. So for these reasons, that's why we always keep the K4 on the bottom of our kayak.
Wait, are we coming in or no?
All right, go around one more time and then come on in.